Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a closer look at the Metatrader 4 software platform. We here at Stop Trading use this software exclusively for all of the trades we make, so we'll be covering how to get the software up and running, how to use it, and we'll try to offer some useful tips and shortcuts along the way. Okay, let's get started. So, Metatrader 4 was developed by a company called Metaquotes way back in 2005. So at the time of making this video, it's actually been available for 15 years. It was actually superseded by Metatrader 5, which in itself has now been available for almost 10 years. Both versions look and feel very similar, and as your Forex knowledge and experience progresses, you may in fact decide to switch to the newer version, or possibly even an entirely different trading platform altogether. However, we tend to stick with Metatrader version 4 simply because it's ultra reliable, we are extremely comfortable with the software and tend to think that if something isn't broken, don't try to fix it. Now you can obtain a copy of Metatrader 4 from any reputable Forex broker, however we personally recommend IC Markets to trade with. Selecting a broker is of course entirely up to you, however we tend to prefer IC Markets owing to their tight spreads on currency pairs, fast execution speeds, as well as their fast payouts on trading profits and overall customer support. IC Markets also offer demo accounts, so we'd encourage you to take out a demo account to begin with, not only to practice your trading, but also to get familiar and comfortable with the actual Metatrader software. Okay, so we'll begin with the installation process. Now you used to be able to download version 4 directly from the Metaquotes website, but somewhat understandably, Metaquotes have now removed this version from the site, presumably to encourage more people to adopt the newer version 5. You shouldn't let this concern you too much, as Metatrader 4 is the most widely supported Forex trading platform ever, and you'll find that every major Forex broker still offers the software for free when you open a real or a demo account with them. When opening an account, there are a few things that you need to decide. Firstly, what trading platform are you going to use? Now obviously this video is dedicated to using the Metatrader 4 platform, also known as MT4 for short. So we'd recommend opting for MT4. The next thing to decide is the account type. IC Markets offer two account types, and I'll briefly explain the difference between the two of them. We have a standard account, whereby IC Markets makes money on every trade you make by applying a spread on each Forex pair. A spread is basically a gap between the sell price and the buy price. So for example, they might offer a sell price on GBP USD of 1.27510, but offer a buy price of say 1.27515. So there is a gap or spread of 5 pipettes between the two prices, which is basically how the broker makes their money. This is in fact exactly how an exchange currency counter at an airport works. Their buy price is always slightly higher than their sell price. So this is a standard account which all brokers will offer and is the most common account type. The second account type is known as the raw spread account. For this account type, the spread between the sell price and the buy price is often 0 pips, absolutely no gap at all. This isn't the case for all Forex pairs, but for many of the major pairs that will be the case. You'll find that for the raw spread accounts, the spread will almost always be more favourable than a standard account. So why not just choose a raw spread account? Well, with raw spread accounts, the broker instead charges a fixed commission of $3.50 per lot for every trade you make. And I should point out that's specific to IC Markets. It may differ with other brokers. This is in contrast to the standard account type, which does not charge any commission at all and simply relies upon the spread itself to make money. So how do you decide which account type to use? Well, to begin with, I'd recommend just using a standard account, because it's good to get an understanding of spreads and the differences between the sell price and the buy price. However, as time goes by and you become more experienced, you might want to do some trade analysis to see how much you could be saving by running a raw spread account, especially when trading with larger accounts. The next option is the currency type. Generally speaking, it makes most sense to select your local currency. So in our case, we would select GBP for the Great Britain pound. However, it should be pointed out that most brokers only offer a limited number of currency type options. Now that's not to say that you cannot trade if your local currency isn't one of these options. It simply means that whilst trading, Your account income and expenditure will be expressed in one of these amounts. Most people in Europe will of course select the euro, however the rest of the world tend to go with the US dollar as it's the most familiar. The next option is leverage. Now we'd recommend watching the video we made of leverage and margin to get a better understanding of the term, but suffice to say we recommend that lower leverage makes far more sense for novice traders. Ideally we'd recommend 1-to-1 leverage to begin with. Finally, you'll need to select your initial deposit. Now remember that this is a demo account, so the funds are simply virtual funds. You don't have to deposit any real money at all. Now generally speaking, we'd actually recommend that you select a deposit amount that closely represents the amount that you plan to deposit when you first begin your trading journey. However, we wouldn't recommend going below 1,000. Truth be told, trading with such a small trading account is only of use if you're genuinely wanting to practice trading. It would be impossible to make consistent real profits with a starting account of less than 1,000. So there's not much point selecting less than 1,000 virtual funds for your demo account. Like I say, try to reflect the real amount that you plan to deposit, but really you should start with at least 1,000. Okay, so once you've done that, you'll receive some account details for Metatrader via email, and you'll be granted the opportunity to download the software. The actual installation of the software is just like any other standard Windows-based software, so it's extremely straightforward. Now you may be prompted to open a new account when you first launch Metatrader, but you shouldn't need to do this as you should be using the login information provided by your broker via email. In order to log in, you simply go to File, Login. Okay, so to begin with, you can see 4 charts in the main viewing window. To start right from the very beginning, I'm going to close all of them. You can close each one by clicking on the small X in the corner. You can also close chart windows by right-clicking on the tab in the bottom corner of the window. An alternative keyboard shortcut to achieve the exact same thing is by pressing Ctrl and W on your keyboard. Now before we proceed any further with the video, I'm just going to do one thing quickly, which is to disable audio alerts. You won't need to do this unless you really want to, but Metatrader can have a tendency to make all sorts of trading alert noises which will prove to be somewhat of an annoyance whilst making this video. So I'll just quickly turn this option off. The option is found in Tools, Options, Events. You can disable all alerts or individual ones by double clicking on them if preferred, but for this video I will just disable all of them. Okay, so let's first identify what each of these sections in the software are and what their purpose is. We'll start with the Marketwatch panel on the left hand side. So this provides details of the Forex pairs that you'll be trading, and you'll notice a time displayed here. This may not necessarily match with your own local time. This time represents the broker's local server time, not yours. So if your broker isn't running in the same country as you, please be aware that the time might not match your own. So for each of the Forex pairs that you'll see, you will have both bid and ask prices of pairs. So just as a quick recap, the bid price is essentially the sell price and the ask price is the buy price. And you'll generally find that the buy price is always slightly higher than the sell price, except for if you happen to be trading on a raw spread account, in which case the prices may be identical. Now you may find that some of the Forex pairs may not be visible. The Forex pairs that you see are simply the default pairs that the broker has decided to put on show. But to reveal all of the pairs that you can trade on, as well as other tradable non-Forex symbols such as metals, cryptocurrencies or indices, you can right click on the panel and select Show All. You can also customize the Forex pairs or any other symbols that you might want to focus your attention on into a set of symbols. If I use Hide All, I can hide all of them. Then if I select specific symbols, I can tick the ones I want to focus my attention on and then save the set. If you don't happen to like the order that the symbols are displayed in, you can also untick the auto arrange option and then drag them into any order you'd prefer. You may also want to view the spread column, which displays the current spread that the broker is offering on each symbol. This represents the gap between the sell price and the buy price. Now, generally speaking, pairs with a wide spread do not represent good value trades, and you should be careful when trading any pair with a particularly high spread. We generally tend to avoid any pairs if the spread is above 10 pipettes or 1 pip. The second tab is the tick chart table. This will display every single tiny movement that occurs on a symbol, which may even occur more than once in a second. Personally, we don't tend to use this table, but it's there if you're interested. Next, we have the Navigator panel, and this can be broken into the following sections. So first of all, we have accounts. So you can have multiple accounts and even toggle between demo accounts and live accounts if you wish to. If you only have one account, then you'll only see a single account here. Next, we have indicators. These are technical indicators, which are tools that traders use to determine when to enter and exit a trade. We'll go over different indicators in more detail in a separate video. As well as the default indicators built into MT4, there are also hundreds of additional indicators which can be found on the web and loaded directly into Metatrader. We also have our own custom indicators available on the member section of our website. You can group indicators into favorites by right-clicking on any one of them and selecting Add to Favorites, and they will appear in the Favorites folder. Expert advisors. These are essentially programs that can act as robots, or bots for short. In here you can select a bot to auto trade for you and leave it running. We'll discuss Forex bots for Metatrader in a separate video. Finally, we have scripts. These are small pieces of code that run in Metatrader which execute small tasks such as displaying additional information on your chart. As is the case for indicators and expert advisors, there are also many scripts available to download from the internet for Metatrader. Okay, so next we have the terminal panel. Within this panel you'll see multiple tabs running along the bottom. The Trade tab displays current active trades, and we'll come back to this when I demonstrate an actual trade. Next we have the Exposure tab. This details the exposure to your account on the trades that you have open. Again, I'll come back to this when we open a trade. Next we have the Account History tab. This is fairly self-explanatory. All previous trades are displayed here. Next we have the News tab, and your Forex broker may send you market news information which can be viewed here. You can simply double click on any news story and the story will open up in a browser window. We also have the Alerts tab, and you can set up alerts for Metatrader to notify you when certain conditions or criteria are met. So for example, you may want MT4 to play a sound or possibly email you when GBP USD reaches a price of say 1.25. When you create alerts, they can be viewed here. Next we have the Mailbox tab. Messages from your broker or from MetaQuotes will appear here. Again, you just double click on them to open. The remaining tabs are actually out of scope for this introductory video, but of course feel free to explore them in your own time if you wish. There are also a number of other panels which I'd like to draw your attention to. We also have the data window, which is represented by an icon which runs along the top ribbon, which looks a little bit like a crosshair and is by default deselected, so will not be on view. The data window offers more detailed granular information on each pair. However, this can also be found on the chart itself, so we personally tend not to use it. The other panel is the testing panel. This is a more advanced feature of Metatrader which allows you to backtest an expert advisor or a bot based on historical data. This would allow you to help determine if the bot has potential to be profitable. Like I say, this is an advanced feature of Metatrader, so is beyond the scope of this video. Now you'll see a number of buttons that run along the top ribbon in Metatrader, and I'll try to explain what each one of these do. However, we'll first of all get started by actually opening a new chart window. As is often the case with Metatrader, there are more than one way to do things. To open a chart, you could either click on the Create New Chart button along the top ribbon and select the Forex pair you wish to open. Alternatively, you can right-click on a symbol from the Marketwatch panel and select Chart Window. Now you can maximize the chart to take up the entire chart window by either double-clicking on the top bar or by clicking on the Maximize button. Now just for reference, if you want to maximize your chart window so that it takes up as much screen space as possible, you can also press F11 to toggle full screen mode and back again. Now personally, we're not a fan of this default chart style. We much prefer the use of candlesticks when trading Forex, so we can easily switch to the candlestick chart by pressing Alt and number 2 on the keyboard. For your reference, there are 3 chart types within Metatrader, and each can be accessed using either Alt+1, Alt+2, or Alt plus 3. And as I say, because we use candlesticks, we tend to use the second option, which is Alt plus 2. We're also not a big fan of the default colour scheme. When we use candlesticks, we much prefer to use red and green candles. So I'll show you exactly how you can modify the colour scheme along with a few other options. To change a chart's properties, we can either go into Chart and then Properties, or as a keyboard shortcut, we can simply press F8 on the keyboard. Now I personally prefer to set my bar up and bull candle colours to lime green, and my bar down and bear candles colours to red. But it is of course entirely up to you what colour scheme you choose. Another thing we tend to do is actually hide the grid, as we personally feel that it just makes the chart a little bit easier to read. And we also ensure that the OHLC option is ticked, as this shows the current candle open, high, low and close price in the chart window. Now you should be able to see some information in the top left corner of each chart window. It shows you the current Forex pair in focus. It also tells you the current time frame, so for example if it was showing as M15, this means that every candle on the chart represents a 15-minute period. Now as I just mentioned in the chart properties, if you have the OHLC option ticked, you'll also see the open, high, low and close price of the last candle, which is of course the current candle. Finally, you'll see a small triangle. You can tick on this triangle to activate a basic one-click trading interface, which allows you to place trades directly from the chart window. Okay, so in terms of the chart window itself, you can adjust the scale of the chart by clicking on the mouse and dragging up and down on the vertical price bar on the right. We can also drag the chart left and right to move along the timeline. Or if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can use that to roll the timeline backwards and forwards. You can also use the page up and page down buttons on your keyboard to scroll backwards and forwards one screen's worth of price action. You can even shift the chart backwards and forwards one candle at a time, and to go backwards by one candle, you press Shift and F12, and to go forwards one candle, you simply press F12. Now you'll actually see that if I scroll back and then let go, it will actually snap back to the current candle as soon as Metatrader registers any kind of price change. This is because of the Scroll Chart to End button on the top ribbon being enabled, which always takes the chart back to the current price whenever there is a price change. To disable this action, simply deselect the button. You can also jump immediately back to the current price at any time by simply pressing the End key on your keyboard. Next to this button, we also have the Chart Shift button. This lets you create a small gap at the front of the chart. Now this is extremely useful if you want to draw anything on your chart in front of the current price, such as trend lines. Now when you enable the chart shift, you'll see that the price moves back a little. There is in fact a small arrow at the top of the window now. If you click and hold this arrow with the mouse, you can actually move this backwards and forwards to suit your needs. Now each and every candle on the chart tells a story, and if you hover over any particular candle, you'll see information specific to that candle along the very bottom of the software. You can see the candle's closing time. You can also see the open, high, low and close prices of the candle, and also its volume. Now just to explain briefly what volume means, the value actually represents how many occurrences of a price change occurred during the lifespan of that candle. The higher the number, the more price changes occurred, which basically suggests that more price action occurred. If you want to, you can also add a visual representation of chart volume directly onto the chart from the chart properties options. Now by default, we have the basic cursor arrow moving around on the chart window, but you can also use the crosshair tool. It can be selected from the top ribbon, or you can simply press Ctrl+F to activate it. The crosshair tool acts as a measuring device from the point you first click and hold the mouse to the final location where you drag the mouse to. This is really useful if you want to measure from one candle to another. It will also tell you how many candles you're measuring, as well as the price change. Okay, so we have one chart window open, let's add another. This time we'll select a different Forex pair. Now you'll notice that once we open it, you can actually see that we now have tabs in the chart window area. This allows you to toggle between the different charts. If you wanted to close a particular chart, you can right click on the tab and select close. Or as a keyboard shortcut, you can also press Ctrl+F4 and the current chart in focus will be closed. Now you'll also notice that the new chart looks extremely different to the first chart. It hasn't copied the changes we made to our first chart properties. Now if we're happy with a certain visual setup on a chart and it simply doesn't copy these settings for each new chart we open, and in fact we need to change settings for every single chart, then the process would become very tedious indeed. We can actually fix this with the use of templates. Now once we're completely happy with one style of chart and all that we really want is for subsequent charts to look exactly the same way, we can save our setup as a default template. And once we do this, all future charts will open and look the same way. To save the template, we can either right click on the chart style that we want to keep and select template, or we can alternatively use the template button on the top ribbon. We'll go to save template and save this as default. Now you'll see that if I open up a new chart window, the chart will now look exactly the same as the first one. Now you may in fact find that you like different styles for different pairs or different symbols, in which case you can save the template and name it whatever you want, and it will still load up the default template if you've saved a default, but you can easily switch between other templates if preferred. Okay, so now we'll look at interacting with the chart. We'll begin by drawing some trend lines, which is represented by the button on the ribbon with the diagonal line. You select the button and then can proceed to clicking a start point of a line and dragging the line to a finish point. If you want to adjust the line, simply double click on the line to highlight it. You'll know it's highlighted by the dots that appear on the line. By clicking and holding the mouse button on the middle dot on the line, you can actually move the line in any direction. Alternatively, by clicking and holding on either end of the line, you can also change its angle. Now whilst the line is highlighted, you can also simply press the delete button on your keyboard to delete it. But if you find that you accidentally do this and then realise you didn't want to delete it, you can easily bring it back by simply pressing Ctrl and Z on your keyboard. Now you can also right click on the line to change its properties, such as the colour, the line thickness, or even the line style. You can also give the line a label. You can also define the parameters of the line, so basically define a start point and a finish point of the line. You'll also see the option of ray. Now by using this option, you can actually make the line go on forever in the direction that you drew it. Once you finish with the line, you can also double click it once more to deselect it and the dots will disappear. Now this trend line is simply regarded as an object by Metatrader, and you can of course have multiple objects drawn on your chart window. If you wish to view the list of objects you have or manipulate them without having to double click on each one, you can simply press Ctrl+B on your keyboard to view the objects list. When you have many objects, you'll start to see the benefits of assigning a label to each one of them so that they are far easier to identify. Now as well as trend lines, you can also draw horizontal and vertical lines. They will work almost identically to trend lines in terms of interacting with them. The only real difference is that the lines go on forever. If you draw a horizontal line, for example, it will stay on the chart at that level no matter how far back or forwards you scroll. Now we also have something known as equidistant channels. This will draw two channels perfectly parallel. As is the case with the other lines, you can manipulate them by double clicking on them. And if you want to change the positioning, the gap size between the two lines, or even the channel angle, it's very easy to do. Once again, you have similar options to that of the trend line, and you can also use the ray option to decide if you want the channel to go on forever or not. We tend not to use the ray option. You can also draw shapes and labels onto the chart, and we'd encourage you to play around with these options as well as the properties for each option to see exactly what they do. Finally, we have the Fibonacci tool. This will show the Fibonacci retracement levels on the chart, simply by clicking and holding the mouse on the start of a swing and then dragging to another swing. And based on that overall price swing, it will show you what the retracement levels are. I'd encourage you to watch the video on Fibonacci to get a better understanding of exactly what this is used for. Now I'd just like to refer back to the Navigator window where we briefly mentioned technical indicators. There are some built into Metatrader and others need to be loaded into the software. These indicators can be added directly onto the chart by simply clicking and holding the mouse button on an indicator and dragging it directly onto the chart. Here's an example of using the Bollinger Band indicator. Now there will be indicators which overlay directly onto the chart and other indicators that are shown directly underneath the chart. So for example, the Bollinger Bands will be directly on top of the chart, whilst the average directional movement indicator will be shown below the chart. If you wish to remove an indicator, you can right click on the indicator and select Delete Indicator. Or alternatively, you can press Ctrl+I on your keyboard and either adjust the properties of the indicator or delete it. Okay, so let's talk about actually placing a trade on a Forex pair. There are a few ways of doing this. You can either double click on a particular pair in the Navigator window, or you can click on the New Order button on the top ribbon. You can also simply press F9 on your keyboard to bring up the order execution window. Here you can actually define what your trade size will be in terms of lots. And I encourage you to view the video on pips, pipettes and lots if you're unfamiliar with this term. This lot size is actually expressed as volume in the execution window. So if you wish to trade one standard lot, you would place a value of 1 here. Most Forex brokers allow you to trade in mini lots, so 1 mini lot would actually be 0.1. Some Forex brokers even allow trading of micro lots, which of course would be 0.01. You can also define a stop loss or a take profit value. Both of these options are covered in more detail in our stop loss video. I should point out that you don't have to necessarily define these values if you don't want to. You can leave them blank. You then select your order type. An immediate order is the market execution option, always selected by default. You also have an option for pending orders, which means that the trade will not execute until certain criteria are met. We have a separate video on pending orders for more information on this topic. You can then simply decide if you're selling or buying and select the appropriate button. Once you do this, your order gets executed and you'll see details of the trade on the Trade tab of the terminal window. Now just briefly touching upon the option of a stop loss value and a take profit value. If you did not define a value for these when you first placed the order, but you would actually like to add these values to a live order, then in most situations you can actually do this very easily by dragging the cursor on the trade line of the chart. If you drag in the direction of the price, you'll create a take profit level, and if you drag away from the price, you'll create a stop loss. You can also further amend these values as the trade progresses. Now if at any stage you wish to close your order, either in profit or at a loss, you can either open up the market execution window by pressing F9 once more and close the trade. Or you can double click on the order itself, which will bring up the window. You can also simply right click on the open order and select Close Order. Now before we wrap up, I should also point out that Metatrader has a fantastic built-in help guide, which can be accessed at any time by pressing F1 on your keyboard. Everything you want to know can be found here, and I'd highly recommend spending some time looking through the help guide to see all of the things that can be done in Metatrader, as the list is simply too long to show here. Hopefully this will provide the foundational knowledge required to use Metatrader and place some Forex trades. Okay, well I hope you've enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.